For hundreds of years, one piece of cloth has remained one of the most puzzling objects in the world, a strip of linen that many believe holds the image of a man who had been crucified. To scientists, it was often dismissed as myth, while believers treated it as sacred proof of faith. But then, new technology entered the mystery. Artificial intelligence began to study the shroud in ways no human eye could, and what it found was not a simple picture or stain. Instead, it revealed strange geometry, repeating patterns, and coded designs woven into the fibers, something that should not exist in ancient linen. This discovery raised more questions than answers. Was it an accident, a miracle, or something hidden that we were never supposed to uncover? What secret does the Shroud of Turin still hold? The Shroud of Turin is not only an artifact, it is a story that never seems to end. It measures 14 feet in length and just over 3 feet in width, woven in a unique herringbone twill that reflects light almost like rippling water. On its surface lies the faint, almost ghostly image of a man, shown front and back, as if his body had been laid inside the cloth and then somehow left without disturbing the fabric. The marks on the shroud tell a story written not in ink, but in wounds. There are stains at the wrists where nails would have pierced, darker patches at the feet, a mark on the side that resembles a spear wound, and faint traces of a circle around the head, as though a crown of thorns had once pressed into it. The face is subtle yet haunting, eyes closed, beard parted, hair flowing gently in strands, as though the image hovered above the fabric instead of being imprinted on it. The first known appearance of the shroud was in 13th century France, where it quickly became both a religious treasure and a source of controversy. Pilgrims traveled to see it, priests carried it in solemn processions, while skeptics accused the church of fabricating a spectacle. Eventually, the House of Savoy obtained the cloth and moved it to Turin, where it has remained since 1578. Through fire, smoke, and attempted destruction, it survived, each time rescued from ruin. Today, it rests inside a carefully sealed, climate-controlled case within the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. Protected by glass and steel, it seems almost frozen in time, as though the centuries themselves are guarding its secret. Everything changed in 1898 when a lawyer named Secondo Pia photographed the shroud for the very first time. He set up his equipment, expecting only a vague image. But when he developed the photographic plate, something shocking appeared. The negative revealed a positive image. Suddenly, the blurred face on the cloth became a sharp, lifelike portrait. Clear cheekbones, defined lips, strands of hair, and folded hands all stood out in stunning detail. This discovery did not prove the shroud's authenticity, but it proved that the image interacted with light in a way no paint or dye could. From that moment, the shroud was no longer just an object of faith. It had become a scientific problem that demanded investigation. Throughout the 20th century, experts examined the cloth using every method available. Chemists tested fibers with chemicals, microscopists studied its surface, and forensic specialists examined blood-like stains that seemed to coat the threads rather than soak into them. Botanists even discovered pollen trapped in the fibers, some of which matched plants native to the eastern Mediterranean. Textile experts compared the weaving style to ancient looms. Each study gave fascinating results, but none were strong enough to solve the mystery. Instead of answers, the shroud always seemed to provide just enough evidence to raise even more questions. What puzzled scientists most was how the image formed. There were no pigments, no brush strokes, no signs of paint, and no penetration into the deeper fibers of the cloth. The marks rested only on the very top surface of the threads, as though they had been lightly scorched or touched by a burst of light. When researchers created 3D depth maps of the image, they noticed something extraordinary. The darkness of the marks seemed to correspond to how close different parts of a body might have been to the cloth. The nose and forehead appeared darker, while areas farther away were lighter, suggesting a three-dimensional relationship. Many experiments tried to reproduce this effect with chemicals, heat, or radiation, but none succeeded in matching the shroud exactly. The greatest controversy came in 1988, when 3 laboratories, Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona, performed radiocarbon dating on a small sample taken from one corner of the cloth. Their tests suggested the linen dated from the 13th or 14th century, pointing to a medieval origin. For some, this result ended the mystery. The shroud was simply a clever forgery. But others immediately questioned the sample itself. That corner of the fabric had been handled often, exposed to fire, and possibly repaired with newer threads during the Middle Ages. Critics argued that the test may not have reflected the cloth's true age. Some questioned the cleaning process before the test, while others pointed out that testing one corner of a 14-foot fabric cannot represent the whole. Instead of ending the debate, the radiocarbon dating only fueled it further. And so, the Shroud of Turin carried its mystery into the modern era. It is an image that behaves like a photographic negative centuries before photography existed, an image formed without paint or dye, a relic with an uncertain age, and a symbol that inspires both deep faith and strict skepticism. Now, in the age of artificial intelligence, the mystery has taken a new turn. Computers trained to recognize patterns invisible to the human eye have begun analyzing the shroud in ways no one ever imagined. Unlike people, machines have no belief or disbelief. They simply search for structure in chaos. They are revealing hidden patterns, codes, and geometric designs woven into the fabric, details that raise entirely new questions. Photography revealed a face. Chemistry revealed the surface. Forensics revealed the wounds. But now, artificial intelligence is uncovering secrets buried deep within the weave itself. What else has the Shroud of Turin been hiding all this time? Was it truly the burial cloth of a crucified man, a brilliant medieval creation, or something beyond either explanation? The mystery remains, and perhaps that is why the shroud still fascinates the world. It is not only a relic, it is an unsolved riddle that refuses to let go. For centuries, one piece of cloth has fascinated and divided the world. It is the Shroud of Turin, a long strip of linen believed by many to carry the image of a crucified man. For believers, it has been seen as sacred proof. For skeptics, it has always been a clever creation or myth. For scientists, it has been a puzzle that refuses to give a clear answer. But now, with the arrival of artificial intelligence, the debate has taken a new turn. Instead of just seeing an image, researchers are finding hidden patterns, geometry, repeating codes, and structures woven into the very fibers of the linen that seem too organized to be accidental. This discovery raises questions. Was it a miracle, a mistake of nature, or something we were never meant to notice? The cloth itself is striking. It is about 14 feet long and a little over 3 feet wide, woven in a fine herringbone pattern. On its surface appears a faint image of a man, seen from both the front and back, as if a body had once rested in it but then vanished, leaving only a ghost-like imprint. The marks on the cloth tell a story. There are stains where nails could have pierced the wrists, blood-like smears near the feet, and a wound on the side shaped like a spear thrust. Around the head are faint traces that resemble the marks of a crown of thorns. The face is subtle, almost hovering, with closed eyes, parted beard, and strands of hair falling naturally. The image is so light and shallow that it seems to float above the weave, as though the cloth once recorded distance as well as presence. The shroud's history is equally mysterious. It was first recorded in France during the 13th century, where it quickly became an object of devotion and controversy. Pilgrims flocked to see it, while skeptics accused the church of staging a fraud. It eventually came into the possession of the House of Savoy and was moved to Turin, where it has remained since 1578, surviving fires, smoke, and rescue attempts. Today, it is housed in a carefully controlled glass case inside the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. The shroud's most famous moment came in 1898, when a lawyer named Secondo Pia photographed it. When he developed the negative plate, he was shocked. The faint and almost invisible image on the cloth turned into a clear, detailed face on film. The negative looked like a positive. Cheekbones, lips, strands of hair, and crossed hands became distinct. This discovery did not prove the shroud was authentic, but it revealed that the image behaved like no ordinary paint or pigment. From that day, the shroud moved beyond faith and entered the world of scientific mystery. Throughout the 20th century, Researchers used every tool available to study it. Chemists tested fibers, microscopes scanned the weave, forensic experts examined the blood-like stains, and textile historians studied the thread patterns. Pollen grains found on the cloth were consistent with plants from the Middle East, and other residues hinted at contact with herbs. But no single test gave a final answer. Each study only deepened the mystery. The image, when analyzed, showed no paint, no brushstrokes, and no penetration into the threads. Instead, the faint discoloration seemed to sit only on the outermost fibers, just a few microns deep, as if gently touched by light. When computer depth maps were created, they showed that the darkness of the image seemed to match the distance from a body surface, a kind of 3D effect that no medieval artist could have imagined or reproduced. In 1988, the shroud faced its most decisive test. Small samples were cut from one corner of the cloth and tested by 3 independent laboratories in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona using radiocarbon dating. The results pointed to a date between 1260 and 1390, suggesting it was a medieval creation. Many took this as final proof, and newspapers declared the mystery solved. But the choice of sample soon came under heavy criticism. The tested corner was a section that had been handled the most and possibly repaired after a fire centuries earlier. Some experts argued that the fibers contained cotton mixed with linen, as well as dyes, making the sample unrepresentative of the original cloth. If true, the dating could have been skewed. This disagreement kept the debate alive, showing how one small piece of material could change centuries of interpretation. Other dating methods were also explored. Some studies using X-ray scattering and analysis of the linen's cellulose structure suggested the cloth might be older, but these results were not universally accepted because environmental factors can alter results. Pollen evidence also added intrigue, showing contact with plants native to the Middle East. None of this proved an exact date, but together these studies opened the possibility that the cloth might be far older than the radiocarbon tests suggested. The biggest problem has always been access. The shroud is not a regular artifact. It is a sacred relic. Researchers cannot simply cut it apart to test freely. Every sample comes with restrictions, and this means one piece of cloth can represent centuries of debate. Science seeks more samples, but faith and preservation limit how far that can go. This tension has left the mystery unresolved. Now, artificial intelligence is bringing a new perspective. Unlike traditional methods, AI does not need physical samples. It can analyze high-resolution images, ultraviolet scans, and infrared data to search for hidden structures. Using advanced tools like pattern recognition, frequency filtering, and 3D mapping, AI has detected repeating codes and mathematical patterns that the human eye could not see. These do not look like brushstrokes, paint, or simple transfers. Instead, they suggest that the image carries a strange kind of order, something more like a rule or formula than a human artwork. AI has also confirmed earlier findings about depth. The image intensity correlates with distance, as if the cloth recorded spatial information rather than simple contact. If it were painted, this subtle relationship would likely break down under close examination. If it were pressed against a body or a sculpture, the fibers would show pressure marks or pigment penetration, which they do not. Instead, the image seems to be formed by something that touched only the surface at a microscopic level, leaving no material behind. This does not prove miracles or disprove science. It simply shows that the shroud is more complex than any known technique can explain. It behaves like a photograph centuries before photography existed, like a 3D map hidden in a flat cloth. AI cannot say when the shroud was made, but it can ask better questions about how the image was formed. Each discovery does not end the mystery. It deepens it. The Shroud of Turin continues to live in this balance between belief and science, devotion and skepticism. Whether it is a medieval masterpiece, an ancient relic, or something else entirely, it remains what it has always been, a cloth that refuses to give simple answers. Instead, it invites endless curiosity. It reminds us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved quickly. They are meant to be lived with, studied, and wondered at, as if the cloth itself wants to keep its secret just beyond reach. The change in color on the shroud is unusual because it does not go deep into the fibers. Only the very top parts of the threads are affected, while the inner cores remain untouched. The edges of the image are soft and blend across thread boundaries instead of filling the gaps between them. Even modern laser experiments, carried out by different scientific groups, have struggled to recreate this effect on linen. When lasers try to burn the surface, they often scorch too deeply or leave uneven patterns. This makes the shroud's image very difficult to explain. The question it raises is not about theology but about physics. What kind of process could add energy so gently and so precisely that it only changes the very top layer of fibers and does so in a way that creates a gradual pattern matching the distance from a body? When researchers combined images of the shroud taken under different kinds of light, they noticed another strange feature. A faint symmetry appeared around parts of the face and chest. This pattern did not match the natural folds of the fabric or the technical flaws of cameras. The fact that it showed up again and again, even when scientists use different methods or randomize sections as controls, suggests it may be real. Skeptics say it could be an artifact or a false impression, but curiosity keeps the discussion alive. If the image was simply the result of cloth touching a body, there should be random distortions. If it was created by an artist, there should be tool marks or paint residue. Instead, the shroud shows something different. An image that seems to come from a process we do not yet fully understand. Artificial intelligence has recently revealed more about these hidden features. What AI found was not something created from nothing but patterns already present in the data, waiting to be uncovered. Beneath the main image of the face and torso, subtle geometries and ratios began to emerge. Shapes repeating around the brow, lips, chin, ribs, and shoulders. Even the hands showed faint patterns that did not match the natural weave of the cloth. These structures stayed visible under both ultraviolet and visible light and remained consistent across many tests. The question naturally arises: how could such order remain hidden in a piece of fabric for centuries without being noticed before? Skeptics suggested that AI might simply be seeing faces in the clouds, as humans often do. But researchers avoided this trap by using neutral methods such as principal component analysis, which removes assumptions and focuses only on statistical patterns. Even with these tools, the result was not a clear drawing of a face but a field of brightness and shading that behaved more like a natural law than a human artwork. This raised a new possibility. Maybe the cloth is not just a canvas but a kind of map of forces or events we do not yet understand. To rule out mistakes, researchers went back to raw images taken decades apart with different cameras and filters. The same patterns persisted. When they tested other pieces of linen treated with stains or heat, the results were not the same. This suggested the shroud's image was unique. The presence of blood-like stains added another twist. Instead of disrupting the geometry, the patterns continued underneath the stains, as if the image and the blood had been created in separate processes. This deepens the mystery. Was there one event that left the stains and another that created the image, or are they two parts of the same unknown process? Some researchers whispered about energy fields. If the image looks like it came from a field, perhaps it did. Experiments have tried to test ideas such as corona discharges, ultraviolet bursts, or electrostatic events, but none fully explain the shallow, precise image or the way intensity seems to map distance. One physicist said plainly, "This does not behave like an artifact. It behaves like a phenomenon." That statement captures the challenge. The shroud acts less like a work of art and more like a record of an event no one has yet been able to reproduce. Within the scientific community, these findings have spread carefully. Some teams tried to disprove the patterns but failed. Others searched for similar effects in old fabrics but found none. An Italian group described the phenomenon as spatial intelligence in degradation, while an American group called it a decaying signal. Both terms hint at mystery rather than solution. Theologians reacted as expected. Some believers saw the image as evidence of resurrection, while others urged caution, reminding everyone that science cannot prove or disprove faith. Scientists themselves worried not about belief but about moving too quickly. They argued that evidence must be measured, repeated, and tested before any bold claims are made. The Vatican stayed quiet, knowing that any statement would be used to support one side or the other. For now, the data speaks for itself, and artificial intelligence has earned a strange kind of respect. Unlike humans, it does not care about miracles or hoaxes. It only counts and analyzes, which may make it the fairest judge so far. But with each answer, new questions appear.